Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you here on behalf of Nordic Chamber of Commerce. My name is Lukáš Kovanda, and I am here to moderate this panel discussion that is focused on the current development in ESG investment. So we have several guests to speak on this topic, and I briefly will introduce you into the ESG topic, because I think it's from the last few years it's well known, but still we can elaborate more on this. ESG is a crucial term concerning green investments, for example, but not just green investments. ESG, of course, means E like environmental, S like social, and G like governance. So the term means that current companies, shareholders, stakeholders should focus on how companies and our organizations meet goals that are in ESGs, meaning that, for example, that they are environmentally friendly, they are focusing on reducing their emissions of CO2, and they are trying to be able to be prepared for carbon neutrality by 2050, maybe sooner, of course. But there's also a S component of that term, means social. So there is not just the environmental aspect of their business that should be really put forward, but also social aspect, meaning that the growth should be sustainable, not just from the point of view of our environment, but socially sustainable, and there should be no groups lagging behind, meaning socially. And of course, very important is also the G part of that term, meaning governance, like proper governance of companies, and that its structure is real fruitful for societal development as a whole, that it's not just about profit maximization, but about broader goals that really are helping to our society as a whole. So that is very briefly, and I know very briefly and not so in detail, but I think our speakers today will introduce their insights in more detail. So let me welcome here first speaker, and his name is Tomáš Babáček, and he's from Deloitte. And now, Tomáš, the floor is yours, and I'm looking forward for your presentations and probably elaborating more on what I have just said here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lukáš, for introduction. I'm trying to share my screen. Hopefully it works. Can you see it, please, just to check?
Yes, it's working. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So again, thank you for introduction, and thank you for inviting me to the event. It's my pleasure to be here. And what I'd like to briefly comment in my input here is really the scale and depth of the change that we're witnessing in terms of sustainability and ESG, as you introduced, and how we witness this from Central Europe, because I think every corner of the world can see these changes a bit differently. So what are the specific things that we're witnessing here in Central Europe? So first, This is just a short reminder of the speed that we're seeing, especially in Central Europe. Only 4-5 years ago, we were not discussing sustainability, we're discussing CSR, and in this part of the world, it very often had a form of a charity, or at most support in art, support of artists. And so only a few years later, we're talking about ESG and sustainability. So that shows the speed of the change. And it's good to remind at least some of the reasons why we're seeing this transformation to take place. So it can be the acceleration of the climate change itself, or understanding of the climate change, or ability to read data and to agree on reading them. It can be also a huge business opportunities that many companies see in transformation, in investment in more eco-friendly technologies and business cases. It can be, of course, social mobilization and better awareness of a broad public. And it can be a new enforcement role of financial institutions that, of course, use different skill set in enforcing, for example, environmental regulation than environmental inspectorates would do. So these and maybe other reasons, these are some of the reasons why we see such a swift societal and economical transformation impulse. Again, the first Earth Day was celebrated, I believe, in 1970, and simply in Central Europe, we were not celebrating it. Here, we were dealing with other things, and we were not actively, mentally part of this development that is not recent, that is more than 50, 60 years old. And so from Central European perspective, it really seems very, very fast. This change of language, of priorities, and of goals. One of the mimicries of this swift change is the legislation. I can comment it from my perspective, having a background of lawyer. So one of the mimicries is a huge amount of new pieces of legislation that is being adopted these months and years. So this can be one of the overviews of some pieces of the legislation being adopted in the past few months. It is legislation in the area of finance and disclosure, legislation in the area of waste management and circular economy, different pieces of legislation adopted in the area of energy and trade, different pieces of legislation adopted in the pure protection of the environment and biodiversity, but also including agriculture and food. And what we can see on this diagram or scheme is that not only there are many pieces of legislation being adopted these days, but that there are so many of them that we can see a structure in them, and more importantly, that they overlap in the goals that they seek. And we may shortly see that more in detail when we, for example, focus on the finance and disclosure area of legislation. So one of the pieces of legislation that has been recently adopted in the European Union is the taxonomy regulation that primarily seeks to channel private investment into sustainable activities. But at the same time, this regulation widens disclosure obligations of companies. In this case, it applies to big companies, public interest entities with over 500 employees. And it requires them to gradually report on first the eligibility, and then in a second stage in their alignment with sustainability activities as is regulated by the EU taxonomy. So that's one of the pieces of legislation that is recent, that is being still gradually developed, the KPIs that will define what is sustainable and what is not sustainable activity. Another piece of legislation, just shortly to comment, is CSRD, already quite widely discussed even in the Central European region. So this is a piece of legislation that will probably be adopted only in 1 month's time or in a few weeks, aiming firstly to basically widen the disclosure and reporting practice that already has been established to some extent, but it will be much wider. And what we're seeing here is that we are starting to see non-financial information not as something to add to the financial information, but as something that is very much interlinked with the financial information. So not something to be seen apart, and not only acknowledging that, of course, companies have positive and negative impact on their environment, but as something that also has a direct impact on their financial standing, financial performance. So we're seeing a shift in understanding of the importance of non-financial information. And by CSRD, this the reporting on sustainability performance will apply to many more companies. So it will have a standardized form. It will be audited pretty much like financial reports. So quite change in how we perceive importance of non-financial information and how we use it. And last example of new legislation adopted in this one of many columns of sustainability regulations is SFDR. So this is a regulation that applies primarily to financial sector. It primarily aims to prevent greenwashing. So it requires financial institutions and financial advisors to disclose information on their exposure to sustainable or non-sustainable activities, but at the same time, it requires them to collect information from their counterparties, from their business partners. So on the one hand, this regulation seeks to improve disclosure by the financial institutions and advisors, but it also has a direct effect on the companies that will have to bring the information to the financial institutions and financial advisors. And so what we're seeing here, and again, this is just one of the examples or mimicries of the societal change and regulatory change, is that we see a network of interlinked instruments that are interconnected and that strengthen each other. So in this case, finance and disclosure. So we're seeing gradually more and more companies disclosing information on their sustainable performance. referring to categories by the EU taxonomy, and this information being available not only to their customers, employees, and civil society, but also to the financial sector, which themselves have to report on the products that they're selling, either directly or indirectly referring to sustainable impact of the investment. So different pieces of legislation that strengthen each other, and that by the combination and the global effect actually make a very, very strong push and incentive for companies to rethink their operations. Which brings me to how this is perceived in Central European region. One of the things that I'm continue to hear again and again, is that companies either don't have sufficient information, or that they're swallowed by the information, and it's hard for them to get oriented into what is material, what is important, what is here to stay, and what might be just a momentous mode, and what is important to their operation. So it's not just tons of new pieces of legislation, but tons of other technical information, new operators that are available on the market, helping companies to adjust their operations. So tons of new things that everybody has to get familiar with, and that's one of the obstacles for everyone to, of course, move in this area. One or some other gaps that I'm witnessing or I'm seeing here in Central European region is skill set in cooperation, governance, or leadership. Basically, all the projects that I have been involved in have something to do with an advanced form of cooperation among new types of partners. So any type of solution that we have been ever developing, implementing, is complex one, and it requires specific skill set. Cooperation among new types of organizations, setting up advanced governance schemes that the involved parties will not consider as a burden, but as something bringing value to them, because the governance is something that holds the cooperation together. And these are skill sets that I think we're just gradually developing here in Central European region, and sustainability is a great opportunity for us to learn more. This is a learning curve. This is not black and white, but this is a huge opportunity for us to strengthen our skill set in this area. Which brings me to just a short comment on the needs that I see in Central Europe, what companies ask for. It is the understanding of the changes, be it in regulation or in technical area, in the business area, new business models. It is capacity building. Most of the companies need to build internal processes, roles, information gathering, evaluation for the purpose of their non-voluntary reporting on their ESG performance. They need to gradually involve this information into their decision-making processes. Simply, persons in organizations that have not been involved in environmental protection or social aspects. All of them are in the stage of learning new things, and it requires time. But the sustainable aspects simply need to get through the whole structure of organizations, and it takes some time. It takes effort, and this is investment that the companies simply have to do right now. So that's the comments I had on ESG. Lukáš, I hope it was understandable, and if I may return the word back to you or to other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tomáš. I would like to ask Lea if we may continue with.
Thank you, Lukáš. Thank you for handing the microphone over, and thank you, Tomáš, as well, for a very informative presentation. Lukáš indeed is our next panelist.
Okay.
So if I may just briefly introduce you, Lukáš is the chief economist at the Trinity Bank in the Czech Republic at the moment, and he's also a member of the National Economic Council, which is an advisory body to the Czech government. He collaborates with the United Nations Development Programme as a senior socio-economic analyst, and he's also a lecturer at the University of Economics in Prague and a member of the scientific board of the Czech Banking Association. He's an author of several books. He has published 2 collections of interviews with Nobel laureates and other prominent economists, and he had written 2 books on behavioral economics. So welcome, Lukáš. Thank you again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vera. Thank you for your introduction, and I will go in my presentation or in my speech through current macroeconomic development concerning the situation in Ukraine, of course, and I will assess in this context our current approach to ESG topics, because I think there is a need for a reassessment of this in the light of the current economic development, which is not so positive as we thought a year or 2 years ago, because of not just the war in Ukraine, but especially because of its implications concerning especially the energy sector in European Union. So the situation now in the Czech Republic and in European Union as a whole is quite dramatic, because we are heading into heating season, which will be very challenging, as we all know. There is a threat of a recession in European Union as a whole, and in countries that are really important for development, economic development and social development of all the continent. I mean, especially Germany, but also France has been facing problems with with its electricity generation, and Czech Republic as a country that is so connected to Germany and to a single market of European Union is, of course, affected very much by the development. That it's not so positive. It's not at all positive, to be precise. But luckily, this year, the growth of the Czech economy should be still solid in the context of the current development, because the growth rate should be 2.3%, which is better than many of us economists would expect some months ago, especially in spring, when The invasion of Russian forces into Ukraine had begun, and now our sorrows, or our major problems are with the next year and next heating season, because gas storages overall in Europe, in European Union, for this heating seasons are quite full. So we are about 85% full. In Czech Republic and in countries like Germany, Netherlands, and others, of course, they are also ahead of their goals in terms of fulfilling their gas storages. So in this heating seasons, we do not expect in our basic scenario any major problems with supplies of electricity and gas to households, and probably even to industrial companies. So there should be no major problems with electricity generation, for example. No blackouts, no even managed blackouts, meaning that probably we won't need any gas or electricity rationing. In summer, there were some prognosis and forecasts that Europe as a whole would need ration energies, but current development has shown us that probably there would be no such a need for these heating seasons. On positive side, again, there is this new development in prices of gas and electricity on major energy exchanges all around Europe, and now there has been a significant decline of prices since the end of August. So the panic from the end of the August has somehow diminished, and it's not so intense like before. Still, the prices are, of course, much higher still than before the war and before the pandemic. We are not out of black woods, but the situation is not so dramatic as it was, for example, at the end of August. And it's thanks to the gas storages and that we are able to prepare for the heating seasons. There is also a positive forecast for coming winter. The temperatures should be not so low, and it means that there will be less of demand for heating, for heating capacities, so demand for gas because of that, and electricity, and it should lead to a more balanced situation in current environment. And of course, we don't know how Russian regime would act, and Russian regime uses gas as a weapon in this war, which is economic war against the European Union, and we are still not, of course, 100% sure what the next development would be, but the scenarios of what the Russian regime could do now, I think, are quite limited, because already the major pipeline connecting Russia and Germany, and meaning whole European Union, Nord Stream 1 is off. So there are two other pipelines, gas pipelines, that are transporting gas from Russia to European Union. First is transit via Ukraine, and this pipeline transport gas into countries like Slovakia, Austria, Italy, and there is second pipeline they're still working, and that's Turk Stream, and it transport gas to countries like Bulgaria, Serbia, or Hungary. And it seems that these pipelines would work through all winter, because Russia needs some income from gas. For Russia, it's very important to have at least some income, even from European customers, especially in Balkan countries and partly in countries like Slovakia, or still Hungary and Italy, or Austria and Italy. So we do not expect that there will be any major outages. There won't be any major outages on these pipelines, and because of that, we are quite confident we can somehow go through all these heating seasons without any major damage done to industrial production in European Union as a whole. Of course, some of companies, like for example aluminium smelters or some steel mills, probably would need to halt at least for some time their production, but there should be no systematic halting of production all around the European Union, which I think is a positive sign. But the next heating seasons, especially the heating seasons of 23-24, will be even more challenging than these heating seasons, and that's our major fear right now, and that's because of the Russian approach, and we won't be able, it seems now, to really fill our storages after these heating seasons. So we won't be able next year in September and October to have these storages filled like we have it filled today. So it won't be 85% like today, but maybe 20%. And it poses really a threat for the next heating seasons. From this point of view, I think it's very important to reassess some major goals that we put forward in the context of ESG some years ago, before the war and before the pandemic. And we need, for example, to discuss carbon permit transactions and carbon permit system of European Union, because of course it contributes to high prices of electricity. Carbon permits currently account for about 10 to 20% of electricity prices, of the power exchange price of electricity, which is of course, not not so big number, but still 10 to 20% when this is artificial increase of electricity prices. I think we need to somehow reassess it and to reform or transform the market for carbon permits in such a way that we will be able to somehow lower the electricity prices. So there is a plan, there has been discussed now to introduce more those permits into the market, and it would lead to a decline of prices of those permits, and because of that, even to decline of electricity prices. Secondly, I think even though that this is, of course, in contradiction with ESG goals, because permits, the carbon permits, its major framework, how to motivate companies, especially electricity generators who are using coal or gas, or gas-fired or coal-fired electricity plants, and carbon permits, of course, should penalize, or their major aim is to penalize those plants because of their quite high amount of CO2 emissions, and there are other companies or our other plants that need to have for their production those permits, meaning steel mills or other, and with those carbon permits in force, we are really now pushing in the bad direction, and it seems to me, because of artificial increase of the already astronomically high prices of electricity. So I think the logical step right now is, as I said, to halve the system or inject more those permits into the system, and it would lead to a significant decline in prices of carbon permits, and then also to the electricity prices decline, which is, I think, very important, because when we are not heading into this direction, we can face some, especially in the next heating season, which I said would be more challenging than this one. We are facing problems, and many, for example, many companies in Germany and many analysts in Germany warn that there could be some deindustrialization of German economy. And second thing, I think that is again contradictory to ESG goals, is that Germany should be more open to extension of lifetime of their nuclear power plants, because there are 3 nuclear power plants that are still working in Germany. And I think because we are in the single market of European Union, we need to have those plants working as long as possible. So again, it is something that may go against the ESG goals, but still we need it now because of the current exceptional situation. So I would prefer it now to have it, even though it's, as I said, contradictory to ESG goals, because I think now we have to fix more important goals, and this is especially to face the Russian regime in its war on Ukraine, and on the same time we have to have sustainable development in European Union, meaning not just environmentally but socially. And when there is, for example, the industrialization of German economy, of course, the social impact, even in Czech Republic, would be huge, and it may increase unemployment rate very dramatically, and it would lead, for example, to polarization of political scene, not just in the Czech Republic, but in other countries of European Union. And I think we should really be careful with this and put forward now the social goals and put forward them before the environmental goals. Of course, for not 10 or 20 years, but for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as this situation is as critical as it is right now.
Thank you, Lukáš. Very informative. Thank you very much for the talk. And we have got one more panelist, and our third panelist is Jan Kubin. Jan is a sustainability environment specialist at YIT, which is an established property development company with Finnish roots, but nevertheless, they have been operating on the Czech market for the last 14 years or more than 14 years, actually. And they are bringing high quality housing with a great attention to detail to the market in the Czech Republic. So welcome, Jan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for your introduction. And right now I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you see my presentation.
Yeah, I can see your presentation. That's all fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Jan Kubin. I'm a sustainability and environment specialist at YIT. As was mentioned, YIT is a construction company and developer. We operate in 9 countries, I'm sorry. And first, I would like to talk about sustainability, what sustainability means at YIT, how we can see the sustainability, because, you know, everybody heard about sustainability. It's a word that, you know, you can imagine many things under it, and the word is increasingly important to our customers, to our investors. And just a brief description here in the slide, you can see on the right side, you can see a building. It's our latest project. It's called Private Cibulka. It's an apartment building, actually 7 apartments building together. And this used to be a factory. And when we bought this plot, we decided, or our top management decided, that we are not going to demolish the building, because one of the sustainability, or how to be a sustainable, means that we revitalize existing urban areas or existing buildings or factories. Another meaning of sustainability for us is efficient use of natural resources. We try to use photovoltaic systems, solar systems. Even in Finland, they are using heat pumps, heat pumps and renewables generally. And in the following slides, we will get to another meaning of sustainability for us. It's a circular economy. So as a builders and developer, this is a sustainability. It means that we have to look forward, we have to use new materials, new technologies in our projects. Another very broad word is this abbreviation ESG that was mentioned. What does it mean? E, that it's an environment, S as a social, and G as a corporate governance in our case at YIT. And I would like to talk a little bit more about the letter E, because environment in YIT, it means carbon dioxide emissions. And we decided that we are going to reduce CO2 emissions in our operations and also in our projects. And in the following slides, I will tell you more about science-based targets initiative, that how we are going to reduce carbon dioxide emission and so on. But let me say something about the S and G. S, social, it means, we are a construction company, developer, and it means that we are offering not the buildings or schools, but also completely the environments for society. It means that we try to continue offering better living, and there is some kind of concept of 50-minute walks city. It means that you have completely everything in 15-minute walks. It's like you live somewhere in the building, you work somewhere in administration, you can get there in 15 minutes by local transportation or just by walk or cycling your bicycle. Another very important aspect in S in social is accident frequency in our construction sites, and we would like to make our workplace zero harm. It means that there is no accident. We really focus on this, especially our top management in Finland. And letter G, corporate governance, it means that we do not accept grey economy, corruptions, labor exploitation, and everything. As I mentioned, we just right now, YIT Group as a corporate, we operate in 9 countries in Europe. We had been for I don't know, maybe 50 years in Russia, and top management decided that we sell all the businesses, premises, and so on, all the stuff in Russia. So we just this year we just withdrew from Russian Federation, and we no longer operate here. Science-based targets initiative, as a construction company developer, we know that we generate almost 40% of global carbon dioxide emissions per year, especially in production or manufacture of cement and other building materials, steel, reinforced, and so on. And in 2029, YIT decided to commit to science-based targets initiative. It's, you can imagine SBT is some kind of a tool how to set up your targets, and it's based on science. You can see here that in our own operation, we are going to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions 50%. It means in construction sites, in our offices, and how we use green electricity, renewable fuels, and construction work efficiency, tax time, we call it. On the other hand, we have our projects, our buildings, hospitals, and transportation systems, and so on. And then we decided to reduce carbon dioxide emissions in 15%. And it means that we have to look for new low carbon materials. We have to look for new technologies. We have to look for renewable energies and resources. And it's very difficult, but it's our target. It's our target. It's our goal. We do some calculations, and we realized that the scope 3, it means the upstream and downstream carbon dioxide emissions in our projects cover almost 95% of YT Group's carbon footprint. So this is a really challenge for us. And in the following slides, I will show you some examples how we try to focus on this scope 3. Right now, I would like to talk about ESG card. At YT, we just invented this card as a tool for implementing those sustainable measurements in our projects. We decided that you can see here 12 sections in ESG card that for us are the most, or in the constructions and developer, is the most important things, like usage of rainwater, harvesting rainwater, waste management on our construction sites, use of prefabrications, because we are reducing the touch time, the work time or construction time. We are going to use recycled materials in our projects, especially the materials that have a EPD. EPD means environment product declaration. It's some kind of life cycle assessment of the product. We prefer to build on brownfields. As I showed you the first picture, there was the former factory, and we make new residential buildings out of the factory, and so on. So there is some card that we, at the beginning of each project, we are going through the card with our architects and engineers and top management, and we just take which proposed measures are suitable for the concrete project, and then we are looking for the benefits. Like if we use renewables, we know that we save some carbon dioxide, so there is a benefit in reduction carbon dioxide emissions. If we use, for example, blue-green infrastructure, it means that in those proposed measurements, we are going to save some kind of biodiversity in the location that we are going to build the apartment building, and so on. And because our management decided that our residential buildings will be going through the BREEAM certification, this card really can help us in this certification process. Right now, I'm going to the example that I would like to show you. One of our projects is Vesy Hostivař. It's an apartment building project. It's here in Prague, very close to the Hostivař Dam. And in this project, we decided to use so-called recycled concrete. It's not a standard concrete. It's a concrete that is made of, or in the concrete, there is not a natural aggregate, but instead of it, there is a crushed construction demolition waste. And I think this is really a brilliant example of application circular economy, because we are going to use a secondary raw material construction demolition waste. And instead of being taken to the landfills, and I made some calculations in one-click life cycle assessment software. And in this project, we use this recycled concrete in some external walls and of above ground floors and in the concrete blindings, as you can see in this picture on the left side. And in the calculation, the results are that we are going to save almost 290 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So I think this is very good, very brilliant example of how to use recycled materials, how to use a circular economy. The last slide before I will thank you for your attention. I would like to describe this image. This is our latest project. It's a Suomi kindergarten. It's built in our Lubiekin location because we have been in this location in Suomi, Lubiekin for, I don't know, maybe 12 years. And again, this is a very good example where we use wooden building materials. Like you can see this wooden shingles that make the coverings of the building. There is a really very good system for harvesting rainwater. And of course, right now we are participants in the Building of the Year competition. So if you like to vote for this building, kindergarten, you can go and vote for construction. And of course, you can find another specific or detailed information on our websites, www.yit.cz. And so thank you for your attention. It was really very brief presentation, but yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Very interesting presentation, fantastic building. I will definitely vote for this one. It looks beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I would like to thank all the panelists. Thank you very much, all of you. 3 very interesting speeches. We heard about the dramatic macroeconomic developments in the Czech Republic, particularly the developments in the energy sector and the threat of recession in Europe. Also about the complex impact of the war in Ukraine on the economic development in the entire EU. Then we talked about the use of carbon permits, and Lukáš tackled or shared his view on how he would like to see the carbon permits developed. Then we had an overview of ESG regulation and also improvement of financial regulation as a whole, and how financial regulations can help organizations to tackle greenwash in particular. We were talking a little bit about needing a change of a paradigm and there being a learning curve in the overall shift from where we are now to where we would like to be. And then in the end, we saw an example from a multinational construction company and how the company implements ESG measures and use circular economy, use science-based targets to kind of deliver their goals. So very interesting. Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions, if I may, for our panelists. And I would probably start with Tomáš or Lukáš. I don't know who is the right person to tackle this question first. ESG obviously has picked up momentum about a year, 18 months ago. And we are already hearing from companies that ESG is too complex. It needs to be simplified. Some business leaders call it anti-business. But on the other hand, we have heard that Russia is using fossil fuels as a weapon of war, for example. So maybe ESG is coming a bit too late, and we should have invested in alternative sources of energy, for example, much earlier. So I would like to ask you, what is your view? What do you think is the future of ESG? Is this are we on the right path, or is this going to change? Is this just a glitch short term, or in the long term, are we on the right track? What do you think?
Lukáš, would you like to start?
I would try. Thank you. I think ESG is here to stay for sure, but we need somehow reassess it in the light of current development, I think. And for example, when I focus just on electricity generation, which is really very timely topic, the current situation has shown us that green sources of energy, meaning solar panels on wind farms, are great, and they are fulfilling letter from the ESG, of course, because they are helping us lower carbon emissions. But there is problem with with the storage of the electricity, how to store electricity, because this is big difference compared to gas. We can quite easily make the storages for gas, but it's not possible in the case of electricity. So we need to have some backup solution for wind farms or solar plants, solar panels. And without that, we cannot use it all the year, because not all days during the year are windy or sunny. And we need that backup. And I think the mistake of the energy policy of many governments in European Union of past several years was that we simply got too much dependent on Russian gas, and this is source of our problems right now, especially economic problems, but also geopolitical one, I would even say. And we need to reassess this and to be more open to nuclear power instead of gas power. I know that it may be challenging in countries like Germany or Austria or Luxembourg, but I simply do not see any solution other than that, because gas, of course, we can have it, but we can have it from countries quite far away, like Qatar or United States, in liquefied form. That's no problem from technical point of view, but it's costly. So we need to have other backup than gas for our green sources of electricity. And I think we need to invest much more into building of new nuclear blocks and plants. And maybe in 10, 20, 30 years, we will find ways how to make green sources of electricity usable without any problems, even during the days when there is no wind and there is no sun. And then we can go completely green. But we are not in this phase right now. So right now we need a backup, and as the current situation has shown, to have this backup in the form of Russian gas is very dangerous. So we need, I think, to invest more right now into nuclear power. Mm-hmm. That's my view. So that's just one example how we should slightly reassess ESG. But of course, it is here to stay, and we should be able to flexibly react on the current development.
Thank you. Tomáš, what do you think?
Yes, I totally agree with what Lukáš said. Also agree that ESG is here to stay, among other things, because again, this is not a trend of 3 past years. This is a result of a development of many decades, and the reasons for this change that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation are here to stay. They may be even stronger. So there is no reason for ESG to become just a fashion that will walk away in a short time. What I think is important, precisely for this reason, that ESG is here to stay. I think it's important to have a critical discussion on how to implement ESG into our decisions and our operations. Even fight against greenwashing can be a brainwashing, if you see what I'm, there is sometimes a too direct line and too direct ways how to solve problems. is usually dangerous. So all the more because the decisions we're making now are so profound. The requirements that are being placed on the shoulders of businesses are so heavy. We need to have a broad and critical discussion on the decision we're making. ESG is not an aim that will finish in 1 year time. It's a journey. And ESG also needs to be entrenched in the public policy development. It's not just the homework of businesses or private organizations. Even the public sector and the public policies also in the area of energy, as Lukáš mentioned, need to grasp the wider complexity of the world that is in the heart of ESG. So definitely here to stay, and definitely a long journey that requires a critical discussion.
Thank you. I will probably pick on one more topic that you mentioned, and that is greenwash. As a specialist, is there any way how I can recognize, if I'm a reader of these reports, how I can recognize that the company greenwashes? Are there any kind of red flags, for example, for me to look at?
One thing that should strike a reader is when a company call themselves sustainable. Claims like we are green, we're sustainable. So these general claims are typically very false. Even very advanced organizations until recently used such cheesy claims that by definition have to be false, because again, sustainability is not a goal to be achieved next year. It's a journey. So if a company refers to specific goals, like Jan mentioned for their company, specific targets that are being tracked within a time frame, that is something that reflects real processes, real capacity building, real changes in the decision making, in the work with value chain, as opposed to general claims that by definition have to be false. So that's one of the signs to follow, definitely.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll follow this advice. Thank you very much. And maybe one last question for Jan. We would be interesting to know, you mentioned revitalization of existing urban areas. And as we know, there's lots of embedded carbon in old buildings. How does your company tackle the challenge of refurbishment? Or do you perhaps plan to use carbon offsets, or how do you go about it?
We haven't participated in offsetting programs so far because we don't know a lot of, the program, what's the program, and the validation of the program. So we haven't done any offsettings, except that in our projects we are planting new trees and so on. And about the embodied carbon, it doesn't matter if it's old building or new constructions. There is always embodied carbon, because embodied carbon means it's in the materials or in the manufacture, in transportation to the construction sites. So in revitalization, it means that you can skip some those processes. For example, if you revitalize some building, it means that you don't need to transport a material to the construction sites because you already have the material. For example, the skeleton of the building, the concrete skeleton. So in this way, we some kind of reduce some amount of embodied carbon in the projects. For example, in the Pavé Sibulka. And I mean, almost all developers in Prague are going to build on brownfields. because there's not a lot of where you can, in Prague, especially in Prague, where you can build another new buildings. So I think this is the right way to revitalize the brownfields and so on.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Very good example. Fantastic. So I would very much like to thank you for your informative presentations and for the discussion. And if I could please ask you to stay online or rejoin us towards the end so that we can close the entire conference, all of us together. Otherwise, I will thank you, and I will move on, or we will move on to welcome our second panel. We've got a second fantastic panel here for you. And our first panelist on the second panel is Ondřej Šmakal. Ondřej is a leading Czech manager with many years of experience in marketing, finance, and insurance. He started his professional career 20 years ago in a marketing agency where he worked on complex projects and campaigns for renowned clients from the automotive, technology, as well as retail sector. He then spent 2 years at ČSOB Pojišťovna as a manager of direct marketing of pension funds, and then worked in the same area in the insurance company Aegon. For the last 10 years, Ondřej has held senior management positions in companies that provide non-bank loans, both in the Czech Republic and internationally. He led global marketing of ProReal Group. He was a director of Credit On in the Czech Republic and Credit One in Slovakia. And he served on the supervisory board of the Association of Non-Bank Credit Providers. Ondřej co-founded KPS Advisory, which is a financial advisory company focusing on mortgage loans. And he was at the birth of the Czech branch of Viva Credit, which provided short-term non-bank loans. In 2017, Ondřej became the head of Orca Ventures. And from the beginning, he was personally responsible for creating and implementing the strategy. And that included setting up all processes, which are now automated, and that makes Orca Ventures a pioneer in its field. Orca Ventures is an international fintech group focused on providing consumer loans and other financial products. And what differentiates Orca Ventures from its competition is the sophisticated scoring model, which uses big data to minimize risks associated with fraud and non-performing loans. Orca Ventures is also a pioneer of the so-called pay now, finance later principle. Originally a Czech company based in Prague, Orca Ventures is currently located mainly in Denmark and Iceland. It has 125,000 clients, and a total volume of loan has to date reached almost 3.3 billion Czech crowns. The company is currently planning to expand to other European markets with a total potential of 60 to 80 million new customers. So welcome, Ondřej. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good morning, Vera. Thank you very much for a great introduction. I'm very happy that I was invited to this conference today, and I can give you a few words regarding the support of innovations and startups in ESG. Basically, I'd like to talk not just about the ESG, but generally about the startupists, because I think it doesn't matter whether you are doing the business in ESG or normal standard business. You always need some support of your product, project, innovation, and you need the money for this. So generally, I prepared basically today the topic about the mindset blockers, which basically all of the startups has or have, and we should basically understand them and a little bit step out of your own comfort zone to basically have your project successful. So do you see my presentation in full screen?
I don't, Ondřej, I don't see your presentation.
Right now?
Can you maybe try and reshare it again? Maybe it's just the view that I have, but I can't see it anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this looks better. Okay, yeah, now it's here. Now you've got the presenting. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, that's it. That's great.
Super. As I told you, I will be speaking today about the mindset blockers, which I think it's necessary for all of the startups to understand and to move the project forward. I will have no such a sophisticated presentations as all of the speakers behind me. but I will try to a little bit make it much more softer and talk about the core things. So thank you very much. You introduced us. Basically, we are a company which is doing the business in Nordics, mainly in Iceland, which is not very easy market, and we are there over the decades. But we also experience some of the let's say development of the company, and because we are doing the loans, we also need some investors. So our main topic or my main task is currently to get the investors into the company and investors to other projects which we are focusing on. In Iceland, we are not just doing the consumer finance, we are also doing the business-to-business financing. We have factoring, and lately or recently we updated our service to neobank because we understand that the target group would like to get better products. As I told you, we will be talking about the mindset blockers. I will give a little bit overview about some theory which we all know. So we have, all of us has a brain which is divided into parts, which is one is the rational and one is the emotional, which are basically driving our decisions or our wishes. Some of us or some people has more strong emotional part of the brain. Some of the people has more rational part of the brain, and it's visible in all of the steps which we are doing basically in our life. Yeah. So basically, if we do see in the shop nice thing which we would like to buy, we basically are running by the emotional things, not the rational things. So we are not considering whether we can afford it or we cannot afford it, but we are basically deciding about the emotional part or the hard part. So we like the thing, and usually we buy the thing despite of the rational fact. And it comes basically similar in the business. Many startups basically are deciding more rational or more emotional based on how their brain is set up. And it could be the blocker or the accelerator of their idea or of their project. And they might get, the support for the innovations and support for the project easier or way less easier. The second very well-known thing is that we have some comfort zone. All of us has some comfort zone which we do not want to step out because we feel much more secured, much more safe in the comfort zone. But truth is that all of the magic is happening outside of the comfort zone. You have to step out of the comfort zone. You do the things which you don't like, which you are not feeling yourself very secure. And these steps are basically bringing you the success. Yeah. And this is important because many startups do not want to step out of the comfort zone. And in practical way, we do hear from our co-workers or cooperators many things which are blocking the development of the company or are blocking getting the funding to the company, and they have to step out of the comfort zone. Just the main in practice, if you have a look, the main practical blockers are, for example, they don't think big. So the home market, maximum Slovakia, are enough. They don't want to think big, and this is kind of the for investors to support the project, because they are seeing just the Czech market and Slovak market very small. They don't want to invest into it. They would like to see the perspective of the project. They would like to see the income to the project. So this is one of the blocker in practical life of the startup is. The second could be I'm Czech. I don't need a Czech investor. This is I do need the Czech investor. This is actually not true. In Czech Republic, there are not many investors which are able to help Czech ideas, Czech innovations, and that's why all of the startups should be also looking outside of our country and go, for example, to Germany or to Switzerland, where is the capital located, and they have to attract these investors and persuade about their own project. But they are somehow limited. They don't want to speak in English language. They don't want to speak in any foreign language, and they feel that they will find Czech investors. So basically, this is the second of big blocker of the projects to be successful. Then definitely what I met as one of the blocker is that they all telling that my project is not ESG. I believe that all of the projects, startups, or the could be ESG. Even us, we are doing the lending business. We could be ESG. I can tell you how, but definitely in all of the aspects, or you can find in your projects some of the aspects which could be the ESG, environmental, social, definitely. Then the startups are not preparing the proper pitch deck, and they don't think that they can verbally attract investors, or they can prepare the huge Word document, which is not basically understandable for the investors, and that's why they are not communicating properly with the investors, and they have simply no success. Also, they have no patience. So basically, when you are trying to get the support for a project, it's more than a year or more than a year to get the proper funding for a project, or to get a proper financial partner for a project. So you have to have a patience. You cannot go to the market, ask for the finance, and 6 months or 9 months to close the project that it's not successful. The second or the further blockers which we do see when basically the startup is asking for the money is that everything must be under their control. Yeah, so not everything must be under their control. They can take part of the business and they can give it to some of the other providers or other industry. So for example, we had an experience with one of the manufacturer, or basically the idea maker, who created very nice slate. The slate is transparent. The slate basically is from my perspective fully ESG, because from one side you can see, if it's installed on the roof, you can see basically the color of the roof, but from the interior, it's fully transparent. And the tile has incorporated or installed inside the cooling system, and also the solar panels inside. So it's very nice. But the startup is think that he has to have everything under his control. So he said that he would like to get the money for not just for the R&D of such a slate, but also he would like to get the money for creation or the foundation of the manufacturer, a big factory which will be manufacturing these slates. And I think from many perspectives, for investors, it's the blocker, yeah, because they don't want to put a lot of money in such a project which is basically not proved. And it's not proved in sales. So yes, so the investor could be the startups can also think outside of the box and put some of the project under the control of some other companies. Very important thing is when they are coming to us, all of the Czech startups are completely underestimating the technology patent. They don't patent the idea. If they are patenting the idea, they don't patent it as a patent family, and it's kind of the blocker also for the investors. Yeah, and the last point, which I think it's very important, and it's very connected to the comfort zone, or maybe to the emotional part of the brain, is that many startups think that the investors are not talking a proper thing. They don't understand their baby. And this is a quite a big blocker. So they didn't listen, or they don't listen to the investors, what's the investors' worry, and they don't implement these worries into their idea in order to get the funding for the project. So these are the basically typical blockers which I met during my career, and which are basically, doesn't matter whether the project is ESG or not ESG, but it's basically a blocking to get the money for good projects, good ideas, good innovations, which could move not just the Czech but the other economies way ahead. But this is not just the experience this is not the practice without the experience. We also lesson learned. We have also lesson learned in our own business. So I can show you the example about our journey where I was introducing our company, how we are developing, but it was not the development without the lesson learned from these things which I was talking about. So basically in 2019, our company has experienced some regulatory issues, and we had to start looking for the investors. In that time, we've been a digital lender with a single loan product, single market, just web-based sales. We had very limited target group, and we had the pitch deck, which was just a few sheets on the Word document. We didn't think big, and we had no partners. We went on the capital market. We were asking for the money. We were completely not attractive. So after a half a year or 3/4 of the year, we get back to the tables, and we just decided that we have to move on. And we a little bit step out from the comfort zone, and we prepared basically another entrance to another market, and we prepared the strategy, what markets and what products we would like to get. And when we did this, we entered to Denmark, and we realized that we need extra money, and that's why we went again to the capital market. We were again not successful because the company was a little bit more attractive than before, but we didn't properly listen to investors what they are saying to us, that we need to diversify the risk to more markets. They have worries about the target group. They have worries about that we are not basically connected with big partners. Some of the investors was looking for some ESG features or ESG parameters in our products, and many of investors do not read our Word document presentation because it was very complex, very long, not very attractive. The investors simply do not want to read it. For them, it's very important to have a good it's basically a sell, so you have to communicate yourself very clearly. It's kind of the marketing. So we went back again to the table, and we changed completely our minds. And last year we finalized completely the strategy. We finalized entrance. We purchased one company in the Czech Republic to have diversified risk. We basically changed the sales channel, which is allowing us to basically also more monetize the client base we have. We integrated big partners, and we basically found the ESG features in our project. And on the first moment, you can say it's a lending product. What ESG you could do? But we basically implement few features in our lending product, which basically could get the ESG feeling of the project. So, for example, our mobile app, which is the Neobank, has the COT loyalty club. So basically, all of the transactions calculated to the CO2, and basically the client is getting the CO2 track in, or he's getting the points, and he can basically, if he is if he's behaving in a good manners to CO2, he is getting some advantages like the free postponement of the loans or the free interest loans, etc., etc. For each loan, we are planting the trees in Iceland, yeah. And we integrated the Pay Now, Finance Later model, which is basically improving the financial well-being of the client and supporting the financial inclusion of the client. So we implemented the model where the client can take the loan, but we are trying to educate him how to work with the loans and with the expenses. So we basically completely changed from the digital lender to neobank with ESG touch, and we basically success with this project because it has all of the aspects. We went out of the comfort zone. We implemented different sales channels. We still have the same loan product. We enhanced the we basically went to the 3 markets, and we basically renamed the target group which we are supporting, and we started presenting the company much more clearer, and we integrated to the big partners, and basically we started to be very attractive to the customers, and basically during the summer we raised to this project about 11 million euros, and we can continue in supporting this project further or developing this project further. So it's a clear example how we were locked in our comfort zone, but we were slowly, understanding that we need to step out of this comfort zone and to get basically to prepare the project more attractive for the investors. These were our mind blockers, so we didn't think big. We always limited ourselves to the single market. As I said, for the investors, it's not diversified risk; it's a large risk of the financial loss. So if something happens on one market, basically they are losing the money. We had an emotional limit on one loan product. It was super profitable and it was super scalable. We are distributing our loans within 16 seconds from the applications, but it has a bad public perception because even though we have a very low interest rate on the loans, we are doing a short-term loans, and short-term loans are connected to bad loans. And so we basically changed just the code of the product. So we redressed the product, and it was well accepted by the funds and the VC investors, and it's not basically affecting their PR reputation. Definitely, we were lazy to make a proper pitch deck. We were postponing to prepare the proper pitch deck, which has all of the information inside and was good material. So if you have an idea and if you would like to get the money, your task is to do marketing on the project to get the funding for the project. So proper pitch deck, which is easy readable for the investors and has all of the figures, information, which is readable for the investors, it's a must. Without this, you can't success on the market. We basically didn't listen to the investors because we were stick to our business. Yeah, so they were telling us, look, your target group, you're naming your target group as a subprime, and it's associated with subprime mortgage crisis in the US. It's for us the big risk. But later we realized we just renamed the target group. We will find, or we cooperate with some of the other partners to persuade the investors that it's correct target group. And you can see later recently the FCU authority, which is Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, which is the authority which is regulating the financial market in the UK, and also basically the PricewaterhouseCoopers issued several researches that the target group which we are servicing is basically 60% of the economic active people. So we just wrongly, it was the new mainstream, and we just wrongly named the target group, which were blocking us from getting the funding. And we thought that we are so good that we don't need a big brands. So we didn't connect ourselves with big brands. Later, we realized that we need them to get us to basically a club, because even the investors are lazy. Sometimes they would like to see that some of the guys are investing, or some of the big guys are investing, or some of the big guys are supporting such projects, because it's make them a comfort to invest. And the end of the day, we basically didn't change the product, or we didn't change the market. So we have the product, we have the same market or more market, and we are still, profitable. But we changed the thinking mindset, and we just upgraded the projects according what investors were telling us that it's for them the sexy or to invest in. So these are the example on our own company, how even us doing the business 10 years already on Iceland, being profitable, successful, can our own comfort zone can be limited to our comfort zone, and cannot, and be very difficult to get the funding for, because we are limited into our comfort zone. So we need out, and it's the same valid for the startups. They need to understand that they need to do more for their projects to get successful. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and Vera, back to you.
Thank you, Ondřej. Very interesting presentation and honest self-reflection. I really did appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've got one more panelist, and our next panelist is Pia Erkinemo. I hope, Pia, I pronounce your surname correctly. My Finnish is not quite up for it. Pia works at the Finnish Climate Fund, and she is a member of the executive team responsible for deal flow and customer relationships. Her background, however, is from companies like Nordea, Nokia, and Capgemini. The European Commission has benefited from Pia's S&T&I experience of over 15 years as innovation expert and jury member, and she has advised the G7 countries in digital technologies, advanced robotics, and data economy. Pia is also a member of the board at the Lappeenranta University of Technology in Finland, and excuse my Finnish again, and is or has been involved in half a dozen growth companies, either as an investor, board member, or a member of the executive team. Pia is also a member of the Finnish Business Angels Network, where she was a member of the board up to 2018, and she regularly writes columns to the Technology and Economy weekly journal or weekly professional magazine. Pia is the co-founder of Women in Tech in Finland, which is a network of companies standing for diversity and inclusion. Wow, welcome, Pia. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Well, with pleasure. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yes, well, excellent pronunciation in Finnish. So I salute you. And we all have this intermediary language, English, now ongoing. So I don't know your language either. So apologies for that. No. So I have 15 valuable minutes here before then we can start. We will have the possibility for a panel discussion, which I appreciate tremendously. And let me now look at it, how things are on your end. Are you seeing a kind of ambient video at the moment?
Yes, I am, yes.
Okay, good. So I'm very happy to tell you the story of the Finnish Climate Fund, which was kicked off, or our financial activities, 18 months ago. And I have done a journey myself, as you heard. I have been working for quite many years. So coming from the digital world, metaverse and likes, internet world, towards more concrete and physical, which means that I'd like to share with you now what we are doing with the Climate Fund and what we see as of important, why we fund, what we do, and what we fund. So as I've said to my friends who still are my friends, saying that, hey, the climate change is not happening in metaverse, it's actually happening in real world. But we shouldn't neglect digitalization as one of the solution domains for combating climate change. Not because there is no climate change solutions without digitalization in this times world. So what keeps me awake at night, or what motivates me to wake up, is carbon neutrality goal. Finland has the most ambitious carbon neutrality goal in the world. We will be the first country, and our natural reference group is often Nordic countries, as we are in the Nordic Forum. So we will be carbon neutral by 2035 without doing carbon emissions, without doing carbon credits. That's kind of the bars. That's how high our government has put the bar. Iceland 2040, Sweden, depending on their regime. I mean, they are now negotiating about that. They just had a parliamentary election last week, and I just arrived last night from Malmö, Sweden. So either 2040, 45. Denmark and Norway haven't stated anything else than the normal what the EU is saying, so 2050. So this is really the driver for us at the Finnish Climate Fund. And here you see what we are investing. And crème de la crème will be, of course, I go briefly through our portfolio. But so we can come to CapEx intensive facility investment or hardware, software, because so scaling up deployment of climate solutions, or then purely digital. That could be also in a form of platform. And what's important for us is really technologies and companies combating climate change, boosting low carbon industry, and enabling that with digitalization. So often in the growth company world, the European VCs are reluctant to look at capital intensive facility cases, because the VCs and private equity companies, they need to, sell the company further in 3 to 5 years. And what if the first 24 months goes just by building the technology? So physically building the technology, there is no revenue, there is no scaling possibility. So that's why the climate fund, which is backed by the dividends coming from the Finnish previous oil refining company, Neste, stock listed company. So 8.6% of their dividend is addressed to our team to make these investments. So this is basically why we wish to help and take part in making the impact, but also where it's difficult, where the private money doesn't get that easily. So we are always in minority. We will be doing investments worth 80 million this year. Next year, 120. That's what I'm looking forward as an executive team member responsible for deal flow. I'm very positive and optimistic. I see a lot of good tech coming to solve this grand challenge, by the way, caused by people. But we are an impact investor, and that's why our criteria includes in preconditions EU sustainable financing frameworks, do no significant harm principle, so precondition number 3, and then we are looking for emission reduction potential. And I'm stating now that the CO2 equivalent ton is the new currency. We should have our balance sheet, our yearly reports, which are already also containing, what is the burden that my business, and not only my business, but my network's business, where I will then be one of the ones getting the customer money, i.e. profits. So what is our burden to the planet? We have to take this into account, but that's not easy, as we haven't done that before as mankind. And then, of course, when we look at the cases, we're also looking biodiversity impact, social justice, export potential for sure. And as you can see, our sweet spot in financing is 4 to 40 million euros. So this is mostly for like A plus B type of rounds. So we think that there is enough of startup funding in Europe. Of course, now inflation, energy crisis, and the devastating European war, these are impacting also the VC market, all money markets. And we as our goal is to boost the climate impact, we need to be, listening carefully. So how can we help these cases further? Okay, so I already introduced our investment criteria. You put it a bit more simple. It's important to see that we are an impact investor, and that's, our focus as well. All material what I'm sharing here can be distributed to anyone, so it's openly shared on our webpage, climatefund.fi. You'll find more. Oh, what's happening? Okay. And so this is again to ensure you that we are looking both, to decrease greenhouse emissions and to improve the natural resources and biodiversity. And we are indeed looking both digital and physical solutions. So then you wonder that, okay, could we qualify and be in our deal flow? In other words, could Climate Fund be one of your financiers? So this is Climate Fund's current geographical focus, all blue is good, which means that there should be a link to the Finnish national economy. So we are looking for companies that has Finnish technology or is established in Finland, and the emission reduction potential can take place anywhere in the planet or in Finland. So of course, that's for sure. So our use of proceeds, our money can be used, for example, in India. We are also looking for non-Finnish companies, and we are inviting them dearly to come to Finland, or technologies, but then there should be a link, as I said, a customer, daughter company, joint venture, special purpose vehicle in Finland. So currently we are not able to join for investment rounds where there is no linkage to Finland. So it's just a great climate act, climate tech company, but doesn't have a link to Finland. We'll see over the years, as our goal is to put 1 billion euro to climate tech and digital climate tech in the next 8 to 10 years. So it's a lot of energetic money for innovation. So it could be changing our focus, but currently we have a very good deal flow, and 10% of our deal flow. So companies, customers that wants to hear about our financing opportunities, wants to collaborate with us, is coming from outside Finland. So I haven't had any Czech discussion yet, but I have deal flow from US, from Sweden, from Estonia, from Canada. Yeah, one of them actually has affiliate also in your country. Well, nevertheless, so of course, from our side, it's good that usually these companies bring also money to Finland, and then we'll try to match with that. This is what we look. So we are looking anything underground up to near space, because and what I mean by that is rare earth metals. How to replace them with biomaterials, for example, or nanosatellites observing the planet's well-being, also not so well-being, transmitting data to learning algorithms, machine learning, and edge computing, which then the data will nudge. I'm sure you're all familiar with nudging theory, will nudge us as citizens, consumers, B2B decision makers towards resource-wise future. So we are looking plastic to plastic. We are looking pyrolysis. We are looking, we've done 2 hydrogen cases already. Food tech was our first one. And of course, everything what you see here, with the digital caveat. So the real things: solar foods, low emission protein. They are making food out of thin air. It's cell agriculture, and they have invented a solein ingredient protein, which can be done from CO2. And actually, that's why ESA, European Space Agency, is interested in this company, because they could provide a solution when humans would do interplanetary travel, so that we would get, as humans, the protein that our body needs without agriculture, without plants. Elster, emission-free steam and heat for industry. So if you think all I'm from the north, so I'm always thinking Côte d'Azur and all the pâtisseries and boulangeries, so bakeries in Middle Europe and Southern Europe, which are often family-owned and often using very old technology, could be hundreds of years of old. They are huge CO2 emitters. So there is a container size solution that converts electricity to steam and heat when it's needed and can be storing it. So it's for SMEs. Magsort is circular economy for steel industry. Steel and concrete production are significant sources for emissions, and they are taking out of the slack coming from the mining industry and metal that can be reconverted from the waste slag and used again. So very important. And again, you can see we are talking about how many tons of millions of tons of CO2 emissions they can reduce. Now, Betolar is our first digital case. So it's a digital marketplace for replacing cement. As you know, 7% of the CO2 emissions in the world are coming from building with concrete. Well, think how much there is to build in China. So they have a learning algorithm and a digital platform. And well, I hate the word AI, because I only think that, that's in the future, through artificial intelligence, but they have the learning analytics and they know the recipe, how to replace from cement, which by using cement, you release so much CO2. So by replacing cement with side streams from industries, or even with biomaterials, so that the concrete will be still as high quality as it needed in different use cases. Aurelia turbines are making hydrogen turbines for industrial transition. That's really important. P2X solution is then a facility producing green hydrogen. Joyful Biacol is doing what we really are interested in, carbon capture and utilization, and this is biocoal. So you can put fossil to renewable raw materials. So you can make a torrefied biomass production, and by that capture the CO2 for a longer time. Heat is medium deep heat wells. So you are familiar with, I'm sure you have it with geothermal heating, but they are digging deeper, and it can be then a systematic change for the Nordic district heating, and I suppose district heating is known in your area as well. So really get rid of the fossil ways of warming the houses. Then our first fund of funds, so fund focusing bioindustry. In order to spread out our portfolio, it's also good to spread the assets, and that's why this bioindustry fund is really focusing on boosting bioindustry, which we need definitely a lot of shoulders in Europe and in the world. Airmon is our digital case reporting system for grasshopper migrations, especially for methane. And they can analyze from the sensor data, and sensors are very cheap to distribute to wastelands and, for example, industrial areas. So that's where they analyze the data. You can, of course, put the sensor. So this is Internet of Things, IoT. You can put the sensor even to a drone, but you can't fly drones, for example, not at all in all industrial areas, because you can't even use a mobile phone there because of the because of the possibility of fire. And so this is basically what they are doing. And our last thing that we came out public is Fin Recycling, and they will recover sand. Sand is the most used raw kind of ingredient in the world after water, and we are getting a shortage of sand, especially certain type of sand that is good for constructions and special purposes. For example, to Finland, a small country, we are getting the sand that is needed for making molds for steel, for iron, iron particles from Belgium. So this is really a foundry and sand treatment for regeneration technology of sand reclaimer, utilizing kind of that waste and thermally and mechanically increased recycling foundry sand. So that's really important. So that's basically my story. So I hope I kind of made it in time. If not, thank you for the extra minute or two, dear Vera. And the floor is yours, and I'm all to questions and happy to take part in the panel.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pia. You were fine. You were slightly over, but we are good for time. So thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. Thank you both for very interesting presentations. So what did we learn in the second panel? We learned that being an entrepreneur is not a skill set, but it's a mindset. A mindset can be both a blocker or an accelerator. We also learned that every business should be an ESG business. And we learned that the CO2 equivalent is, in fact, the new currency. We had an overview of the Finnish Climate Fund, which is an initiative put in place by the Finnish government to deliver their very ambitious net zero target. And we learned that climate change is not happening in metaverse, but we will not reach carbon neutrality without digitization. And then we have seen lots of interesting and inspiring case studies, I would say, about startups and examples. And I would probably start there in my questions, and I would ask Ondřej. Ondřej, Pia has provided us with a long list of examples of what their organization financed. Have you got any kind of inspirational stories from perhaps the non-Finnish space, I would say, that you came across?
Yes, there are many projects which it's visible that in the Nordic countries they are supporting for and being responsible to the climate, and they are following the ESG. So Pia has presented very nice project, and honestly, I do see also very good projects even here in the Czech Republic. But as I said during my presentations, there are many mindset blockers to go outside. So even though that Pia is not at the moment, supporting anything which is not connected to Finland, these guys, these entrepreneurs can establish some, cooperation with Finland or joint venture with Finnish companies and ask for the investment support from Pia's fund. So this is kind of the mind blockers which I was presenting, and this is exactly the one that everything must be under my control. Not everything, it's not necessary to have under your control. So you can get a funding even though you have a good idea and you can have the joint venture and ask for the money. So yes. Okay, excellent, thank you. Maybe my second question would go to Pia. You mentioned that the emission reduction potential, you said, you're an impact fund, so you are interested in the emission reduction potential as the most important criterion. How can this be quantified? Are there any best practices or frameworks or anything that you can recommend the companies to follow?
Thank you. Very good question. First of all, no one is a master in this. I mean, this is so new. So, and I've seen, just this is something that should take into your kind of a curriculum from, well, I don't know if high school, not then at least from universities and professional colleges, etc. So it's a huge learning thing. I've studied this for 2 years, and I'm old dog. I'm an old dog, so I don't know how much I learn. So, so first of all, be patient. So emission reduction potential for the climate fund, how we look at it, we try to align with the EU Sustainable Development Framework. EU's do no significant harm 6 climate goals. And then because we are just the fund, and we think that when our customer, our portfolio company, when we start to talk this language, it should be so general that when the next round of financials are coming, it would be a quality stamp. Oh, climate funds portfolio, they've done this transparent and honest manner. So that's kind of the goal, is to understand what we need to do in order to reach only 1.5 decrease Paris and COP Glasgow's level, which I've understood it's already impossible for humankind. So what we are looking here, and that's why we always open that challenge us. So when we share, we have a white paper on how to count the emission reduction potential. So we want to get critics and comments. We hope that it's in line with EU's Innovation Fund. They are also asking the same. And then what we look is in nutshell is CO2 emission reduction potential, counting into Kyoto's climate treaty's 7 greenhouse emissions. Scope 1, 2, 3, please check it out, climate and scope 1, 2, 3. How do you count direct, indirect, direct, indirect kind of emissions? And then because we are working with growth companies, so the scaling, so how much the impact could scale in the next 10 years. So this is how we look at it. And I can put the link to the document and what we use. And I've sent it to 2 cases in US as well. And their experts looked at it that, okay, they can also understand, because our base is the European, so how we do the counting. So we are looking for millions of CO2 equivalent tons on the cumulative, on a cumulative path.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it would be helpful if you were happy to share the link that, more informative, more detail, obviously, that organizations can have a look at. That's great. My next question would be, I'm going to go back to the ESGs. And in the first panels, we talked about ESGs being too complex, and CEOs already saying ESGs are anti-business. And what's your view? I know there's quite a lot happening around ESG in the fintech space. What's your view? Is ESG here to stay, or are we likely to see a change in the framework or a complete shift? Any of you? It's kind of a question for both of you potentially.
No, honestly, if I may answer, I don't think it's just anti-business. I said that in all of the projects you can find some ESG touches. So you can connect to your partner. You can be an IT company and you can connect to your partners, which are ESG, doing the ESG, the web host, the server hostings. They can use the green energy to power the server houses. So there are many things which you can find in your business to be ESG. You just need to little bit think about it and find the exact idea. So the same thing in our case, that we were looking how to be social responsible to the target group that we are servicing. So we found a way how to service differently the target group through the loans, to keep the regulation, to keep the regulation protection to our clients, but to ensure that they have a financial inclusion and financial well-being. So in every part of the business, in every business, I think you can find, if you will think more deeper and outside of the comfort zone, you can find a way how to be ESG. It's not necessarily to be driven by the companies which are 500 employees plus. You can do it very easily.
Thank you. Pia, have you got anything to add at all? Or
Well, for us, ESG is here to stay. We are looking especially the E and not and inside environment, the climate in particular. I mean, it's both economy and environment. I mean, for us and biodiversity and social justice, you know, like we are here not for, we are not, you know, I've learned so many sources. It's not the wealth that makes us happy. It's, you know, the living and life and the journey. So really, like, I think the neoclassic, you know, I've gone through like a rehab because that's maybe I'm preaching that here more eager than ever. So I've been a converted, but really on the other hand, you know, there is just no-goes. When I worked for Nokia, we were best in our industry to report, you know, for example, rare earth metals. I know because we were praised the best in the world in electronics. And I think Nokia currently still is that, but that was even consumer electronics those days. So I think these are just, you know, like it's part of the humanity. And I think these teams are very important in very difficult times we experience in Europe. So that's what we're all doing, I mean, as individuals. Sorry, a bit broad comment, but like, I mean, we take this as self-evident, to be honest.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And very briefly, before I close the panel, are startups young people's game? We see startup incubators typically alongside universities, but on the other hand, I know quite a lot of people who are interested or who are active in the sustainability sphere, but they were somewhat probably left behind because being a sustainability professional until recently meant that you had to work for the government most often than not. Is it a young people's game?
I'm passionate about this because there is studies that for the first startup, you know, I'm not asking you talking about serial entrepreneurs, which we all investors love because they've been the journey, they've been in the valley of death, and I have such a huge respect. Okay, I've been on the other side of the table as well, but I have such a huge respect for the founders. The studies are showing that the most ideal age to succeed as a startupper is 43 years. So I mean, I love the enthusiasm in our university where when I'm a member of the board, for example, or the university is nearby here geographically in Helsinki area. But the fact is that the stats don't lie. And usually when you know what you're doing, you know better, you know, age helps you. So, and what you do before. So, you know, the best succeed rate is if you are first comer and startup, or you've done your 10, 15 years of your working life. I don't talk about careers, by the way, because career sounds like that's something to bland. I haven't planned anything. I'm a generation where I drift. So drift to interesting cases, but then having said that, so and there is no way, you know, there are people who are kicking off their startups, you know, age of 20, age of 70, anything between. So that's why, but the stats say, I think it was one Ivy League, Stanford or something, had studied that the best success rate as a first-timer startup entrepreneur was 42.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Andre, what would you like to?
Yeah, Pia is absolutely right. It can be also the startup is the young guys, but you know, these for persuading the investors that you will do the success is that you have an experience. Either you have an experienced team which is behind you, or you have the experience from your own area where you would like to do the business. If you have no experience, then how can you would like to persuade the investor to give you his money to burn it into your business and to believe that it will be successful? So this is very key, you know, criterion that if you go to ask for the money, you have to have a very strong background or strong team behind you, which is doing the business with you. Not just have a cool idea, but per se the investor that you will actually are able to run the business and to make the success.
Fantastic. So that's the hope. Thank you very much. I would like to excuse me, close the second panel. Thank you both. And I would like to invite all three panelists from the first panel, if we could please close the entire session. We have about 5 minutes, so I thought I would give 1 minute to each of you to make your final remarks. If you could maybe make it positive so that we finish on a positive note. Can I maybe start with Tomáš Kováček?
Yes, I'll be happy to. I have one more note to add to all the interesting cases and advices that I heard here today, and that is there are only few things that by which you can inspire people in organizations, and sustainability is one that is available now, and that inspires so many people in the organizations if you do it in authentic way, and if you just don't greenwash. But again, this is a huge opportunity, not just to render the business more sustainable, but also to inspire, to involve people in the process. So a great opportunity and a very, very optimistic challenge that organizations can take. Nothing, I'd like to say nothing to worry about, but probably, I mean, it is very complex. I mean, it's huge challenges that we need to tackle, but sustainability is a huge opportunity for companies to get people on board and to get them involved. So I wouldn't wait a minute and best to start now and just go step by step and involve the persons in the organizations.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. How about Jan? Did you have anything to say?
Yeah, we at YIT, we really look forward to our new goals in the area of reducing carbon dioxide emissions in construction sites and developer projects. And we also look forward to ESG reporting, because we have done some non-financial reporting, but not the ESG reporting, as was mentioned here. And yeah, we believe that the current situation in the world is not good, but we firmly believe that we can bring our goals closer to fulfilling faster than we have thought to the situation. So that's
positive. That's positive. Thank you. Thank you. How about Ondřej? Do you have anything to share?
We generally see a very nice examples of the ESG projects in the real estate development and also in the climate fund presented by Pia. And definitely we've got a very nice legal overview from Tomáš. So I think it's all of us set, and I think we have to just go ahead and find the interesting project to support them, not just to stick with the reporting, but also to find a very nice projects and support them. It's basically duty and responsibility of all of us, because we should be a social responsible.
Excellent. And Pia, what would you, anything to say?
Thank you. I'd like to encourage everyone, women and men, to be innovative and try out startup life, and go for your dreams, and let's remember that we need this inclusiveness. So both genders, or any gender, as my teenage daughter explains to me. So I'd like to see kind of diversity brings us further, and we should actually start building the kind of a gospel of hope when it comes to climate tech, because basically it's humans, we've caused it, it's our job to fix it. So simple for our children and grandchildren. So that's my message, we can do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's also good news that we caused it because we can fix it. Thank you very much, everybody. Fantastic session. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you to the audience as well, for those of you who stayed until the end. And I'm hoping that I will meet you another time soon, potentially at another event. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ahoj Věro, bylo to výborný, moc krát děkuji.